But the danger with therapy is that the personality loves to talk about its problems and its suffering. And if you're not careful, somebody who's talking about their suffering, they're not using it to go beyond it. They're actually the personality stepped in and thought, oh, here's a good place for me to kind of talk about my sorrows and my problems. The main subject here is this isn't therapy. Now, there is an outcome to inquiry and the process of waking up, which means that change will happen in your personality, obviously in your actions. Addictions will be seen through and changes will happen. But obviously from therapeutic viewpoint, the idea is you have changes, but you maintain the personality. So you just have a personality, the addictions basically move to the left or move to the right into something else, or you manage through willpower to keep them at bay. This addiction gets quashed in that area and then it arises in a different form over here. So like, I'm obviously not interested in that world at all. So I'm really speaking to people who have maybe done a lot of that, become quite self-aware of their patterns, and are at this tipping point where they're ready to see through their addictions, or because it becomes part of the remit of seeing through your personality. So it's not about reforming a personality, it's about seeing through it. And the trouble is, there looks like there's a bit of an overlap, because obviously in this group and what we do, we use whatever's happening. We talk about the nitty-gritty of life. So if there is suffering, there's suffering, and we talk about fulfilling engagement with life, and things have to be felt. But the danger with therapy is that the personality loves to talk about its problems and its suffering. And if you're not careful, somebody who's talking about their suffering, they're not using it to go beyond it. They're actually the personality stepped in and thought, oh, here's a good place for me to kind of talk about my sorrows and my problems. Inquiry means you see life as it is, and you see the pattern of suffering for what it is and where it comes from. See, if you're unaware of it, it just the cogs and the wheels turn and you just continue suffering. So the awareness that you bring to it is part of seeing through the suffering, but really behind that is seeing through the whole machinery of the personality. So the suffering is just a mirror on the personality, really. It's just your form of suffering. There's different forms, but it's just a mirror on the personality, really. You know, I had my own suffering, you know, and you have yours, and it expresses differently. But the point is not that suffering. The point is the personality that is expressing in that way.
I just want to understand how the personality basically can use that complaints, for example, or this expression of its suffering to actually go deeper into its personality thing.
It's the soothing nature of the known. There's this weird thing like, this is your prison, but it's my prison, and I know it, and I'm familiar, and I'm comfortable with it. So what we're talking about is being comfortable with your prison, because it's become safe to you, and that applies to your particular version of suffering. The personality would rather go round and round in that suffering than you break through it, because to break through it means to be free of the personality. What I'm saying can look uncompassionate, but it's a really important point, this, because the danger is it's like, if the personality is in any way being a victim, and this talking about its suffering is part of that victimhood, if I then become a soother, I'm just helping continue the suffering. I'm not really helping it, but in the world, that's how it's seen. That's like a good thing to do. Oh, you poor thing, you know, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is not against compassion. I absolutely have compassion for, you know, everyone's got their own version of suffering. So it's nothing against that. But it's this very different thing of clear seeing doesn't ever get pulled into bullshit compassion to soothing someone. Soothing the personality, that's what I would say, that's different. If I in any way don't show that up or see through that, or if I become part of facilitating it, it's bullshit, it's absolute bullshit. But from the outside, from the world's point of view, it can look uncompassionate, but it's actually compassion. It's like being in the clouds, you're looking down, you say, well, I can see from down here, that looks like, oh, you're feeling that, and therefore I give you that and stroke you, and then you feel better, that's good. But from up here, you can see, well, that's just keeping you in your personality. My only goal, if I have one in this role, is to help you see beyond that loop. The personality will always try and find routes back to safe land, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and commiserating over suffering would be one way. And it's a very clever way because, of course, somebody's suffering. They need to be loved, you know, and that's true. But if the personality's using it, that's a different thing. And that's where, like, you know, to really go into what it was, there would be feeling and there would be suffering, but the feeling would lead you beyond it rather than going round and round in it.